We're going to talk a little bit about a yarn today, and then we're going to get started casting on. But before we do, I want to show you what I've gotten. This is a Cascade 220, and it's a medium 4. It tells you that you're supposed to use US 6 or 7. So this is not a DK weight, but if you want a pair of socks that you can wear with shoes, I suggest getting a DK. I got this bigger one because these are going to be like house socks for my mom. So, and plus you'll be able to see the stitches a little better on the bigger yarn. But for you, it would probably be a good idea if you'd get a DK weight, unless you want to wear, you know, them around the house. So this is Cascade 220 Superwash, which I don't do a lot of superwash, but for socks it's actually kind of nice. It's 100 grams. There are 220 yards. So what I am going to do is I'm going to separate this into 2 balls so that as you don't have to do this unless you want to do 2 socks at a time, but I'm going to do that so that I can show you how to work with double points as well as working with the circulars. So I want to be able to cast them both on kind of at the same time, one right after the other, to show you how, depending on what you're making, how you want to do it. Okay, I'm going to shut this down for just a minute and I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back. So I'm going to show you how you can separate your yarns a little bit. Now I put this on my Swift, my yarn Swift, and started this, and I just kept measuring this until it got very close. Now you can see I'm at 0 grams, and this has different weights. It has unit has pound, ounce, and milliliter, but this is grams, and since I know this is supposed to be 100 gram cake, I went ahead and measured it. It was 101 grams. So when I put one of them on, it shows, let's move that up just a little bit so you can kind of see. It shows that we are at, oh, that's not cool. There we go. It shows that we're at 51 grams. So if I take that one off and I put this one on, it shows that this one that I've just wound is 50 grams. So that's close enough for me. I'm going to go ahead and cut this yarn, and I will be able to do 2 socks with you. And basically what you have is you have a 50 gram ball and you have a 50 gram ball. And so it takes 50 grams to make a sock. So let's go ahead and get busy casting on. And the first thing I'm going to cast on is with double points. And then I will get circular needles, and we'll cast on with circular needles just so that you have both of them at one time. So I guess I'll use this one for now. I'm going to unwrap quite a few, and I'm going to do about 48 stitches because this is a thicker yarn. If you're using a DK, you might want to consider how many stitches you want to cast on. Now let me give you a formula. If you're using a DK, like a lightweight yarn, a 3 DK, if you have a 6.5 inch ankle, you measure around the circumference of your ankle, you would cast on 48 stitches, 40. If you have 16.5 inch around your ankle, you cast on 40. If you have 7 3/4 or thereabouts, you cast on 48. And if you have 16.5 inch ankle, you go ahead and cast on the 56. And since I'm using a bigger yarn, I'm going to go ahead and cast on the 48. So for me, I'm thinking 48 might be about there. And there are formulas to do that too. I don't worry too much about it. I've gotten to the point I kind of know what I'm doing. So in order to cast on, I'm going to do a long tail cast on, which means my working yarn is at my right and my tail end is at my left. I hold them like this, wrap it, you just kind of lay it over, pull this in together, and then I'll hold it with these 2 fingers. And all you do is you take your needle up, you bring it over this yarn and through, and then you come and get the first yarn, pull it through there, and tighten it up. Let's do that again. So I have 2 on. I come to this second part of the yarn. I go between those 2. I go between these 2 coming up, and I grab this and pull it. There's 3. Let's do another one. I come up, down, through, up, down, through, up, through, and you're just kind of catching this yarn and bringing it through those 2 pieces of yarn. So I have 2, 4, 6, 7. Let's go ahead. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, if you're putting them on 4 needles and working with the 5th needle, there are 2 ways you can do that. Let me get all my needles out so that I have them for us to work with. Okay. Now I am using a size 9. I will go down to a size probably 7 when I knit. You want to use 2 sizes bigger to cast on so that you have a nice stretchy cast on. So this is a size 9, and I will knit with a size 7. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. If I divide 48 by 4, I get 12. Now you can either keep casting on, which is usually the preferred method, or you can actually take this second and cast on 12 here, which it does get a little tricky because this will get in the way. And I will show you how to do that, but I am not going to do that for all of this. Then you just take your second needle and pull it as close to the first stitch as you possibly can. Now, if you want to do that, you're welcome to do that. I don't suggest it. I suggest just going ahead and casting on all of your stitches, as many as you can get on 1 needle. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, there's enough. There's 24 for 2 sticks. My dad calls them sticks and strings. Okay, let's do it. Another 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you'll see me do this every once in a while. I'll just loosen my grip and pull the string until it doesn't make that little curly cue. Because as you twist your yarn this way, as you cast on, you're twisting your yarn this way, and you can kind of see that opens up the threads. And it won't hurt it, but you'll cast on a lot nicer if you don't do that. Okay, I have enough for 3 sticks. So let's, and you can see I've not quite taken up my entire needle. So I'm going to pull these down just a little bit and cast on 12 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, that's enough for our sock. If you want to make a seamless join here, we're going to cast on one extra one. Okay. Now, when you look at your needle, if you keep your needle like this, where this is the open end, there is no yarn coming off of it, this is the end you want to go ahead and take your stitches from. So the way to do that is, and we need 3 more needles. Keep one of your needles for your working needle. If you only have a set of 4, you'll only layer on 3 needles. But if you have 5 needles, you can use 4 needles. So what we want to do is, I'm going to push these to the end, and tip to tip, I'm going to go ahead and move 12 onto each stick. 1 needle, stick 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And before I do anything else, I push those to the middle so that they don't fall off and I lose stitches. I'm going to do that with my second needle. And you'll see this will get a little floppy at first. As you get rows knit, it will straighten out a little bit. So let's go ahead and do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And again, I'll push this down on my left hand needle, but then I'm going to push my right ones down also. And my last one that I have to transfer, because I'm going to keep this one to knit with, and we already have 12 on here, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm going to move this to the middle. This should have 13 on it. Let's count them. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Perfect. Now, the next thing that you want to do is, and this is just a little bit futzy, I'm going to move everything so that my yarn is off to the side, like that. The one with the yarn coming, you want that to be your last needle, so I've flipped mine over. And you will start to separate these, but you have to make sure that you don't twist them. See, that one was twisted. And the way I can tell is if you line them up like this and lay them one on top of the other, your stitches stay right in a row. And so you just want to go ahead and make yourself a square as best you can, like that. Okay? Okay, so after we've gotten them to where we know they're not twisted, our stitches aren't twisted, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this last stitch of my 13 and I'm going to go ahead and move it to my left hand needle. And you can do this either way. If you leave 13 on one side and not the other, you can do it that way. And then I'm going to take the first stitch on my needle and I'm going to pass it over. Now this is a little tricky because they both want to try and come off. Yep. There we go. And then pull everything just a little bit tight. Okay, now we're ready to knit. And I don't have my size 7 needles. So I'm going to pause. I'll be right back and get my size 7 needles. Okay, so I've gone ahead and gotten my size 7 needles, and I've pushed those off to the side just so I don't get them mixed up. As I take my stitches off, knit them off the bigger one, I'm going to just put that back in its regular spot where it belongs. Okay, now I have a size 7. And you want to make sure that your knitting yarn is coming off the right if you're right-handed. And I am going to go ahead and push this first bit of yarn, the first row, up to my needle, and I'm going to start knitting those off. Now, as you can see, this is it's movable. So you just have to be a little bit conscious of that. There's 1. I'm going to knit 2 and then purl 2. I'm making a ribbing of purl, knit 2, purl 2. So there I've knit 2. There are my 2 purls. Now for some of you, the way your needles flop around may annoy you. If you ignore it for at least 1 or 2 rows, you'll find that it stops being so annoying. So if you can just bear with yourself, you'll be okay. There's knit 2. Bring my yarn forward, and we're going to purl 2. And then knit 2. And purl 2. Now, luckily, I have ended up with 2 purls, which when I start to knit, I usually start with the 2 knits and then go into the purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. And this way, if I have to answer the phone or do something, somebody comes to the door, and I lay this down, I know that I'm on a new stick, and I just need to go ahead and start with the knit. Now, if you're also familiar with what your stitches look like, you can look at these, and if you see the cuff, right there's a cuff, that means those are purls. So you can judge. Now, this one looks like a cuff, but it's not. It's where the yarn came forward. And so if you have to count, you can go knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and then you'll know where you are also. So let's go ahead. I'm trying to get that yarn out of the way. See, this first row can be just a little, you can see. That's why I like wooden needles too. They don't slip as much as the metal ones. So let's go ahead and do knit 2, purl 2. You can see, even I get just a little flustered the first couple rows with double points. And then bring your yarn forward and just go slow. We're not in a race. You're not trying to keep up with anyone. Just go slow, and it's mindful. It's kind of like a meditation. You can think about what you're doing as you do it. Now, see, since I have the first 2 stitches knit, it's not quite as bad. It's not flopping around quite as much. So there we have 2 purls, 2 more knits, and 2 more purls. So once you get to the end of your entire 4 needles, you do want to be cautious before you start your second round. This is only half of my first round. I only have 2 needles knit. And when I get to this end, I'm going to explain to you what you need to do to be just a little bit careful. Because even though you started out not twisting your stitches, they may get twisted through all this wiggling around here. So let's go ahead and do the third needle. I'm going to put my yarn to the back, and again you can see these first 2 stitches are a little bit wobbly and a little bit cantankerous. So we're going to knit those 2, bring our yarn forward, and purl 2. Oh, and I used a size 8 needle. That's all right. I'll fix that. We're going to knit 2 and purl 2. And then knit 2 and then purl the last 2 stitches. Now what you've seen is it happens because I have 2 sets of needles out. I inadvertently picked up my size 8 instead of my 7. So before I get my mouth going again, I'm going to put this in the bag where it belongs so that I don't knit with it again. And I'm going to get another 7. Now, when I come around the second time, I'll remember to get rid of that 8 and put it away. Okay, so we are on our last needle, our last double point. And notice, as I finish a needle, I go ahead and move all of my stitches to the middle. This protects you from having dropped stitches at your ends. So I'm getting ready to work on this one. I pull all of my stitches towards the end of my needle and I knit 2 on a size 7. Funny girl. And I purl 2. And then I'm going to knit 2 more. And notice I'm not in a big hurry right now. I know a lot of people get into trying to knit faster, and I don't. I really enjoy the process of knitting, and like I said, to me it's kind of a meditation, and I think about each stitch as I do it, and so it slows me down, which that's okay too. If you're into fast knitting, hey, go for it, but you don't have to be. And especially when you're learning, don't feel like you have to keep up with anyone. You're not in a race. Okay, so we have our first round finished, and there's my working yarn off to the right, and there's my loose yarn. I used too much to cast on, which is okay. You could cut that if you want. Leave yourself about 6 inches. A hand is about 6 inches, and you can cut that if you want. I'm not going to. So I'm going to put this one away. It's a size 8. You already saw me make my big mistake. And again, I don't worry about mistakes. So I'm going to get out my next size 7. And what you'll see is you want to make sure that you still haven't twisted stitches. All of your little nubs should be on the center of your needle. And when you look at it, they're perfect. They're all in the center of our needle. So I'm going to pull my yarn to the back, and I'm going to go ahead and continue my ribbing. Now this first stitch is going to be tricky, again, just like all the other first ones. But you will see it starts to get just a little bit easier as we go along. I'm going to pull that yarn to the front, and I'm going to purl the next 2 stitches. Now you'll see me, because I throw my yarn different, I have to watch how my stitch is laid. And if you've been knitting with me for a while, you already understand this. If you don't, let me show you what I do. Usually when people purl, the stitch is laying this way, and when you open it up, the 2 legs are separated, and people will put their needle through here, and then they will wrap it over the top to the bottom in a clockwise manner. Now, when I do purls, and this helps a lot if you have tension issues, what I do is, instead of going counterclockwise, I take my yarn clockwise and purl it off. Which means when I do that stitch the second time, the second row of stitches, I have to look at my stitch, and this will just become second nature as you do it. And you can see my 2 legs are separated. If I look at it this way, they cross. I don't know if you can see that down in there. They cross. So that means I have to go from behind and wrap my purl stitch. And this has been the way I've purled as long as I can remember. I know I was taught the other way by someone told me I was doing it wrong, so I changed for a while. But then I found out that actually my purling is okay. It actually helps with my tension. So we finished one row, or one needle. Let's pull our yarn to the back, and we have another size 7. So I'm going to go ahead, and you'll see me do this too. Now, as you look at your needles, the front is in front and the back is in back. So I generally slip it and make it be over top of the next needle. It's just easier for me to hold it. You have to figure that out for yourself. This is not something that is written in stone. Actually, nothing in knitting is written in stone. You get to do a lot of things your way. And so let's go ahead and knit and purl this second needle. I want to keep calling it sticks because of my dad. Pap Davis. Okay. Oops, I split that yarn. I don't want to split yarn. That makes for messy knitting. It can also throw off your stitches if you're not careful. Okay, so we should have 3 needles in our ribbing. And this is going to be my size 8. I have to remember to put that away. I'm going to put the end of my stick over this one. And I'm going to go ahead and knit these off. Ribbing them off. Knit. Purl. See, it's a little bit tricky still, but you'll catch it. It's not the end of the world. And it's easier if you don't flick like I do, if you just wrap it. Now you will notice each round will get just a little bit easier with the 5 needles. They won't be flopping around as badly. They'll kind of start to stabilize themselves. Okay, so if you have a DK yarn, I will not be making mine as long as you need to make yours because I have the heavier yarn for night socks. But if you're using DK yarn, you'll want to make your cuff, you want to knit your cuff at least 4 to 6 inches, depending. If you want a little anklet, then make it about 4. If you want it longer, you can make it 6 or even longer. I would be careful going too long because you know that we're going from the top down and we do need to be able to finish our toe. If you're making toe up socks, which we will do in another segment, it's not such a big deal because once you get your toe done, then you can keep knitting your cuff as long as you have yarn. Okay, so I'm going to leave you here for now, and I will be putting up another segment where I start with circular needles, casting on and getting everything set up for you, so that depending on how you want to do it, whether you want to do the double points or whether you want to do a circular, then you'll know how to do each. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you come back to join me for some more. All right, bye-bye.